You're ready. We will call the special workshop meeting of the Mayor, Board, and Aldermen to review the Bartlett City School proposed budget for the years 2023 and 24. At this time, I'd like to invite the school superintendent, Mr. David Stevens, to come to the microphone at the time, present his presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Alderman. First, before I get started, we have Shirley Jackson, one of our board members here, and also Teresa Winter, our Chief Financial Officer, and y'all all know good old Jason Sykes. He's always, something's going on in Bartlett, Jason's gonna be there, and we're excited to have those folks here to support us. First, I'd like to say thank you. I appreciate, this is our 10th budget. Chief, this is the 10th one. It was very interesting. I've stood here and spoke before, but I don't know if since I interviewed 10 years ago, if I've spoke right here at this place for that long. I'll try not to go that long, Brad. I'll try to get us through, because I know you have a meeting after that. But I do really appreciate the city's support. It's been a great partnership going into our 10th year. We've seen a lot of great things happen through the renovations at the high school, the academy renovations, and really looking now at what the future is going to look like. Now, when we built the budget this year, this has been a little bit of a different challenge. Before, schools were funded through the state, through the BEP, the Basic Education Plan, and so many people said that funding model was definitely basic. It wasn't an adequate funding plan, so the governor and the commissioner, they came up with a new funding formula that's gone into effect with this budget, and it's called TISA, and it's the Tennessee Investment in Student Achievement. So that has been a little bit of a challenge. We have been working under the BEP model for many, many years, and now with TISA, it kind of changes things a little bit. The good news is that through TISA, it looks like we will be receiving some additional funding through the state, so we are excited about that. One of the things we really wanted to do this year was look at investments. We know Bartlett is poised for growth. We know that Union Depot is coming in. We know that those issues with the sewer and all that, Ford coming in, all those things are for the next few years. We want to be, when the school district, well positioned as we grow, so we think about that and making sure that we have all the pieces and people in place as we continue to grow. This budget is built around looking at about an increase of about 200 students. I believe that's what we looked at, which is good growth, and we think that there will be some additional growth. Our planner, Nedra Jones, has looked at it, and we think that it's going to be steady growth, and capacities and things in our schools are looking really well. It's good that we've done the work that we've done to kind of prepare for the growth that is coming. Now, we wanted to make some investments, and first thing we wanted to do was to make sure that our investments were taking place at the schoolhouse. So if you can look at our first slide that we have here, as we look at investments, we look at the budget, we build this on our mission, our vision, our values, and our beliefs. So we always go back to this as our guiding principles. A lot of these vision and mission were things that were the foundation of our district, and we also look at our strategic plan to make sure that we're investing the dollars in the right way. And we went through the process. COVID kind of got that derailed a little bit, but after COVID, we finished that strategic plan with community input. And so this is always kind of our anchor, what we go back to when we look at budgeting, because I tell staff all the time, any decision we make needs to impact students in a positive way. And I think last night at graduation, it was exciting to see 630 of those students walk across, hearing the number of dollars of scholarships. I think it was 36 or 38.6 million. Hearing from our salutatorian and valedictorian, it was very heartening to know that those students were in 3rd grade when we started. So it's exciting to see how they've moved through Bartlett City Schools and how it's impacted them. But we always go back to those guiding beliefs as we move forward. Now, here are our budget investments. Next slide. So one of the things that we have to do is, just like I know in the city and your budget, is being competitive salary-wise is a definite challenge. We know that the labor market has definitely changed. So when we originally put the budget together, we were looking at a 2% increase for teachers and a,
Sorry, I don't have a copy of this, so I don't have a copy of the budget or anything, so I have nothing to work on.
You can use that, Alderman, you can use that, those copies right there. This, we do not have a copy of. That was brought today, so this is what we're showing here.
That's one he brought to me about a week ago, so you can use it.
it's in the packet you have, should be.
So it's in the mailbox. Sorry. I like electronic stuff. So.
Yeah. So, the step increase, we looked at, that's about a 2%, so each teacher that's available for that step increase. And then another 2% on top of the salary schedule. One of the things that we have discussed and looked at this, when we built this budget, it was based on that 2%. We've looked at all the other municipal school districts, and they are going with a step increase, but they're going to a 3%. So what I'm gonna be doing is bringing to my board in the May meeting is another budget amendment to amend this by 1% increase to get us up with the other districts. We can't fall behind in salary schedule because teachers will be looking to jump and move. So that'll be about another $400,000 investment. So we're working to get that, and we'll be doing that through a budget amendment. But we do want our teachers to know how valued they are and that 3% is important. All other staff, central office staff, hourly, all of those folks, we did a compensation study 2 years ago, where before many employees were like on a 1 or 2 steps as they moved. They took the job and there was only 1 raise in there. Now it's 0 to 10, so there's 11 steps. So now these employees will be moving their step, getting their 2% raise. English is a second language area that's grown in some of our schools, so we need 3 ESL teachers. And that is driven by numbers. We have been we needed probably another one last year because that population is steadily growing. It hasn't grown tremendously, but we've got to get those numbers up. And you can see the step increase, the 2% for the teachers is a $1.9 million investment. The step increase for the non-teaching staff is about a $380,000 investment. 3 teachers, that's about $260,000 investment. And then capturing kids' heart. We put a program in where we're really looking at our students. After COVID, we've seen so many kids with so many social, emotional problems, not being able, coming back into school. So we have a program where we really look at working with kids, helping our teachers and staff understand where kids are and bridging that gap, and it's called Capturing Kids' Hearts. So what we're gonna do at the academy is put a teaching position in, and it's a course that's called Lead Worthy. So we're gonna be building a group of mentors, student mentors, that can work with students to help them go through their high school career. So we're excited about adding that position. Special education, we've seen a big increase in our number of special education students. So that's to the tune of about $260,000. We need 2 more special education assistants. We're putting in a mechatronics lab at Bartlett High School, and this is really directly in line with some of the recommendations that Ford has made. And this is dealing with robotics, pneumatics, electronics, so it's kind of assembly line type work. So we'll be hiring a mechatronics. We did get a grant for equipment that we're gonna be putting in that lab. If you see a 120-day contract, that's a really good way for us to save money. That's a retired teacher. They can come back and work 120 days, and we don't have to pay benefits and all of those things. So we're excited to find a strings teacher for our elementary schools. We try to be creative that way. 1 additional guidance counselor that we need in our elementary schools. 2 assistant principals. Ellendale and Rivercrest only have 1 assistant principal. Their numbers are going up, so they're gonna be in line now with the rest of the elementary schools. This is an ask they've probably had for the last 2 or 3 years, that they've been asking for that additional help. Now, we did receive ESSER grant, the elementary and secondary education. What was it, Teresa? We talked about that today. Relief Act. So we received money in that. We had put some teaching positions, some counseling, and some social worker positions in that grant. We're moving them back into the general fund because next year ESSER goes away. So it's a way that we can right-size the budget and get that straightened out. And the other thing that we're putting in, and this has been in our budget, I know 2 other times and has been approved, but COVID hit and we weren't able to staff it. One of the problems we have is we need to be able to inventory and asset tag everything that's delivered. Right now, everything is delivered out to the schools. So we're gonna have central receiving at our central office. If you've been to our central office, that wonderful building that used to be Tropical Square and then it was Bartlett Square, out to the back of that, there's a building, an outbuilding behind the gas station that finally opened. I was glad to see that. My staff, well, they want me to build steps up to it so they can take the shortcut to get lunch. But we're going to hire a couple folks, get a delivery van where things are brought to central office, we can asset tag them, we can get them out. And this is something I know, Chief, you've been asking for, so we can keep a better account of everything that's out into our schools. So just these investments is about a $5 million increase to the budget. The good news is, I'll let the cat out of that bag, we're not asking the city for any more money. We've been over the 10 years, have been very frugal. We have tried to save as much as we can, even through the high school project, the academy project. So that has been a very good situation. So I like to show this next slide. And this kind of.
We have a question. Can we ask you this now?
Sure, anytime.
Dr. Stevens, you mentioned the 3%. So is that going to be in this one?
We're going to do it with a budget amendment to add the.
Okay.
This budget is complete. We're going to come in and bring those dollars in through a
Okay,
budget amendment.
but there will be, instead of 2, it will be 3.
Right, and as know, we bring the budget amendments, and then Dick will
Yeah.
bring those here to get approved. I got to get my board to approve it in May.
And you did that to stay competitive.
We would have had to, I found out about everybody going to 3 the afternoon of my meeting.
Okay.
All my colleagues, I found out that they were all going to 3%, and I just couldn't let Bartlett get behind. We didn't have time to totally redo the budget.
Okay,
So we're going to do it through a budget amendment.
thank you, Doc.
Yep. Yes, sir.
About growth in Ellendale and Rivercrest. Sorry about that. You said there's growth in Ellendale and Rivercrest. Is it just growth in city population for elementary schools?
Just across the board, yes.
What's our percentage of out-of-district students that we're allowed to transfer?
I can get that number for you. I don't have it in front of me, but trying to think, the last time we looked at that, Teresa, do you remember? We ran the numbers. No, it wasn't. It's like maybe 1,800 kids, 1,200 out of 9,000.
Out of 9,000. Okay, perfect.
That's about ballpark. I can get the number for you.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
So this is how our funding works. So with TISA now, it used to be about 50-50, really close for what we got from the county, what we got from the state. So since the state's giving a little bit bigger, then that changes those pieces of the pie. So 54% from the state, 43% from Shelby County, and then 2% from the city. And I'll go through this kind of line by line. And I am mayor watching time, so we stay on time.
Do it good. You know, can you just address one thing, Dr. Stevens, is in lieu of what David just said, we hear a lot of people thinking, my goodness, there's not gonna be enough room for the city to grow in our current system. And we know that there's capacity as seats there, plus you built some. I mean, you kind of addressed that
Yeah,
for the
we're
general
well
public.
positioned elementary-wise. Shelby County, when they built those schools, they built them to house around 1,000 kids. Probably Alturia is the one that, about 800 is busting at the seams, and that's one that's a little bit older that we've got to look at in the future and see, that place needs a little bit of help. Don't know if it needs to be a rebuild or a renovation or what, but we're looking to see that process. But yeah, elementary, plenty of capacity. Our middle schools, we have capacity. And with the renovations we've done at the academy, having that out there, I mean, we have a little over 700 kids at the academy, but when that was a middle school, it had close to 1,000. So we've got, and then the high school renovations, we've got capacity. So we are well-positioned going into the future.
Thank you.
Now, the next slide, and this one's a little busy, it's a little bit difficult to see, but what this does, it breaks down each expenditure, and the biggest blue slice of the pie is instruction, and that's directly into that classroom. I think, Teresa, you worked out with the budget at school-based out of that, talking about classroom, teachers, all that, we're like 68% of the budget is spent in that building, in that classroom. That's not including utilities, transportation, food service, all the other things that you have to do to support the school system. But we like to show this so we can always look as a staff as we build the budget to see exactly where is that money going and make sure that that money's impacting kids to the greatest of our ability. Next slide. So what you have here is you have the 2022-23 compared to the 2023-24. And I'm gonna put these two on separate slides in just a second and talk about a few things here. But you can see that we were at a $92 million budget last year, and this year we're at a $100 million budget. So there is definitely some change to that. If you will, let's go to, I think you'll be able to see it a little better here. So you can see our county taxes, we're at 40 million. And I just got a text from one of my colleagues that our out-of-district kids is about 8.7%.
8.7%.
Yep.
Well, that's different than 1,800.
Yes.
Okay,
That may be lives with and out of
I
district.
got you. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
So you're at 40 million in county taxes, now we're at 41.8. Now, if you look at that number, municipal tax, that 2.3 million, I'm gonna jump one slide ahead, and then I'm gonna come back to this slide. So if you could jump one slide ahead. So we get from the city, based on the sales tax, and that's the half-cent equivalent, 1.7. This was set in year 3, and that's when maintenance of effort. So after 3 years, that's the minimum that the city is, that's the minimum requirement of the city. And that hasn't gone up in 7 years. So we're still getting the 1.7. The 608,000, that is for Shelby County Schools for the buildings. And that was the consent decree through the federal court order. And that is what, a 12-year payment. So this will be 10. So we'll have 2 more after that. So the city's part, as far as maintenance of effort is that 2.3 million, which is the same amount we've been getting since year 3. So I'm gonna jump back to the previous slide.
Hey, Dr.
Yes.
Stevens, could you repeat that again? Is the maintenance effort 1.7?
It would be 2.3.
Okay.
And the reason is because that money was to the district. So the way the state looks at that, if the city gives those dollars, whatever they're for, they have given us 2.3 million, that would be into that maintenance of effort. And one of the things on the previous slide I do want to look down and say, if you look at reserved, is planned use of fund balance at the bottom. What we did last year, you see it was 2 million. 1 million of that comes to you. That's for the debt service on Bartlett High School. And I believe that's a 20-year commitment, and this is year 3? I think this is year 3. So there's 17 more million that we will be paying to the city. The other million from last year was for OPEB into our trust, which is the other post-employment benefits. So we had a good year last year. Normally we'd put 500,000 in that trust. We were able to put $1 million in that trust. This year we're looking at a 3.5 million use of fund balance. 1 million will go to the city for the Bartlett High School project. $500,000 our normal payment into the trust, and the other 2 to do part of those investments that we were talking about, to be able to do the 3% raise, to be able to do the ESL teachers, special ed teachers, all of those pieces. So we feel like by doing that, we're not having to come and say, hey, city, this is what we need, but we've got some really good talent at those two elementary schools. I'm going through principal interviews and just hired some really good folks, some folks that are ready to step into those assistant principal roles. We need to get those folks in those schools as we continue to grow so that we're able to keep our talent here in the district, because that is one of the things with all the municipalities, there is a lot of competition for talent. So if you look at the municipal tax is 2.3, and that's what Teresa pretty much, she budgeted that from the city, what we get. The other one there is the recurring local revenue, and recurring local revenue, that's like our laptop insurance, our Y-Care, some of those flow-through dollars there. State education funds, that's the big one, the 4.6 to the 52. So that is basically where our money is coming from. Now, the next slide is a little bit difficult to, well, here's going to one more slide forward. This is showing where last year you can see through TISA we received 0 because we got 46 million of BEP. So now it's going to the 41 million from TISA. The interesting thing there is we get estimates from the state, and we did not get our first TISA estimate until 1st of April? May have been the end of, yeah, no, it was because we just got our second one. For TISA, yeah. So we get those estimates, and we've noticed that it has been holding. We get 2 more estimates before they come in and say, this is exactly what you're getting from the state. So the good news is, through those estimates, we've been holding pat. And Career Ladder Program, that's a program that the state had for teachers that was, in fact, that goes back, I believe, to all the way maybe to Don Sundquist, doesn't it? The Career Ladder 1, 2, and 3, so that's sunsetting. So the next slide, this is our instructional program, and you can see the head count, and then the budgeted amounts from our regular instruction, which is the biggest piece of that. That was that blue piece of the pie from 43 million to 49 million. Then you have your exceptional children, that's our special education, from 7.2 to 7.8. Technical education, we're adding that mechatronics program, so that's 1.7 now. Alternative education planning, all the way down through, you can see our regular support for instruction, the Office of Principal, that's principals, assistant principals, human resources, operation of plant. So this is a way for you to kind of look and see where those dollars are going to. One of the things that we did this year is we did have an increase to our transportation cost. I believe it was it 400,000? It was a little over 400,000. What they did is during COVID, they held that number, and then through our contract that went up. Our cleaning, we outsource our cleaning. We did not see an increase in that, so we were able to hold the line on that. But the thing that we've done is I think Teresa has done a great job in building the budget. The team has really come in, and we've tried to sharpen it as best we can. Where it is the struggle is the salary, the benefits, all of those things, and to stay competitive. And I know that's the same that everyone I talk to. I'm sure, city, I've been to some meetings and read articles. That is the struggle, and we've got to be able to keep teachers. The other issue we're facing is there's people not getting an education. It's just the pipeline through the University of Memphis is who we usually get. So many, those numbers are dwindling. Just not as many kids getting into that profession. So what we're looking at is how can we talk about the profession in a way that will encourage kids to come and want to teach in Bartlett, go to Bartlett, because some of our best folks we have grew up here, went to school here, went to University of Memphis, wherever they went, came back and taught here. So we have got to continue that pipeline, and we're really looking at going forward in year 10, how can we make Bartlett a place where people want to come work, buy a house, raise their family, and do that. So we're working really hard at that. But we feel this is a solid budget. It's addressing some certain things. It's addressing some salary issues, it's addressing some needs out in the classroom, programming, but it's also paying into that OPEB trust, which we have been able to do year after year to keep that cost down. So we feel like that team's done a great job. We're excited. We think this is gonna make sure that Bartlett is still able to provide a great education for every student and a great place to work for everybody that comes into the district. So if you have any questions, anything there, I will definitely try to answer them. If I can't, Chief Winter will, she's always good at pulling the numbers out.
Alderman Young?
Stevens, I got a question. You kind of have a double-edged sword in that we're trying to encourage people to get into the technical program and emphasizing the fact that you don't have to spend all the money on college to earn a good living when you get out of high school. And as a result, maybe they're getting into the technical programs and we can't get teachers now because of it.
Well, I think there's enough to go around.
Okay.
I think what we've seen is, with probably 2,000 kids in 10 through 12 over there, there's a lot of kids that are in that early childhood program, where I think my kids went in that when they were little. Used to be Miss Patty's class a long time ago. But we have those programs, but we're looking at adding in teaching as a profession coursework. We've done a lot of great work around CTE, career technical. We're really pushing that. But there are some kids who do have that affinity and they want to get into teaching. They just don't know how. And sometimes we're some of our worst enemies because we don't talk up the profession enough. It has been so good to me and my family. I had 13 family members and I was the last one as an educator. Now my daughter's going to be graduating in December as a special ed teacher from Christian Brothers. So she's going to be the last one.
So is it shrinking in a lot of schools?
Everywhere across the country.
Okay,
It's a national issue.
okay.
The teacher shortages is, and it's every municipality's having the same issue in every district. And when I go to meetings across the state, everyone's having the same issue.
Okay, thank you.
Any other alderman with Alderman Quinn?
Hey, thank you, Dr. Stevens, for coming out today. Just real quick, on the MOE, do you have any plans for that money after it ends?
Well, the 600,000?
Yeah.
It'll go towards the debt service to the city, the $1 million that we owe
Okay.
for the next 17 years.
Yeah,
That's my plan.
yeah,
That's, because the thing about it is, because the next administration down the road, when we did that deal, it was really saying, I'm going into $20 million of debt to another board and another administration. So my thought was take that 600. So it's not as bad to put somebody on the hook for $400,000 for the next 10 or 12 years. That's a little more palatable
yeah.
than doing that. But that's what the plan
That's
is.
conversations I had with Mayor McDonald also.
Right, to move that there.
Yeah.
So.
And the second thing, I don't know if you were gonna ask this or not, but when we had a discussion with Parks last week, we were talking about practice fields. Do you wanna spearhead those questions or not?
So, yeah, no, I mean, no, it's good. So one of the biggest complaints, and obviously I've been involved in sports at the school for a while just because all my kids played, was the amount of traffic traffic and scheduling of the turf field and the usage of it by certain sports. So a lot of sports are year-round now. They use that all the time. So there tends to be issues with scheduling and access to it for certain sports. So one of the things we're talking about overall is the overall plan, long-term plan for fields for Bartlett. And do we need to do that jointly and plan that jointly to expand our capacity?
100%.
Because-
We'd love to be in those conversations.
Okay, good. Well, you'll be involved in the conversation.
Great.
But to me, it's an important one, just given the fact that spring is a terrible time for fields, and everybody who has a grass field doesn't want to play on it because they're going to tear the field up, and so where do they go? They go to the high school, and the next thing you know, you got 3 other sports getting mad because they don't have access to so that's a recurring issue, I think, that we have on it from a capacity.
And that's why when we started, we purchased the property from Bartlett United Methodist for the soccer field. Great partnership with the city, with the baseball, softball facility over there. We did put a field in that's irrigated behind the academy.
Yeah.
Not many people want to use that, but there's some opportunity to develop that. It's a really good piece of property there. Even when you look at that, when you look at Appling's gym, I've gone over with architects and engineers and looked at that and said, is there a possible way to expand that gymnasium or to build a new one? I mean, it is, if you've been in there, on one side, there are no bleachers, on the other side, I think it goes up 3 rows. I mean, that is, and then when you look at Alturia and Ellendale, our 2 older buildings, which we feel Ellendale, from some feasibility studies we did early on, is pretty good structurally, needs some work done to that. Alturia is a school that we're definitely going to. So when we look at it, we gotta see, how are we going to manage that? The good news is, we went through the Bartlett High School project and we went through the Academy project, and we had some dollars come through at a good time. The other thing that is gonna be very beneficial is the conversations we'd have with Lee Harris and his administration. If they build the Frazier School and they build the Cordova School, I think we're probably looking at about, if both of those were built, our ADA split of that would be about $15 million. That gets us well on the way to replacing Alturia. So I think that's some benefit there of looking how we can, by us being frugal, saving money, putting money back for that. That's one of the things that we've tried to do. We knew that building's gonna have to be addressed. Because the thing we don't want to come is always coming to you, and then for 10 years we haven't, is saying, hey, Daddy, can I borrow your credit card? We don't want to do that. We want to stand on our own 2 feet and keep moving forward. But it's always been a great partnership, and so appreciative. The work you've done with the SROs in the buildings, the grounds maintenance, the city public works folks, everybody that we've worked with over the 10 years through the administrations, they're fabulous, and it continues, and it's such a great relationship, so.
Dr. Stevens, I know we've talked about Alturia and we talked about Ellendale. Long-term, do you see the need for both of those?
I think so. I think you're gonna see continued growth, and the thing about it is, you don't wanna shutter one for 3 or 4 years, and then you come up and say, oh, now we need to build another elementary school 10, 15 years down the road. Because right now, if you're looking at the Alturia project, I met with the architect today of trying to get some discussions about, can we start some type of a feasibility study, a master plan for that campus. We wouldn't be breaking ground there if everything went perfect and we started next month, the planning process probably till 25. Because by the time you do the feasibility study, figure out how it's gonna fit, what are you gonna do, then you go and draw the plans, get it out, get it bid, get it, and the way that construction costs are going, that's why one thing in our budget, we don't put a lot of capital in here. We bring those back through with budget amendments, because it's just, roofs have doubled, as you know. It's, we've replaced roofs. We got some roofs going on this summer that we've already funded and taken care of. But we had to order and get that approved last year for this summer. So we did those back in February of '22. So.
My understanding is there's been some significant cost increases, particularly in the HVAC portion of equipment, particularly as they go to new standards, more energy efficient standards. I'm real interested in seeing how does that play out with you guys?
Well, one of the advantages is we have Jeff Waller, who is our operations guy, and he's HVAC guy, and he's been doing that his whole life. We have done a really good job of staying on top of our buildings and replacing those units and getting them up to standards. In fact, I think we've got some going on at Farley Gym this summer that we're replacing out. So we're in good shape. We're in good shape. In fact, he was up at Greenheck at a training session 2 weeks ago. They sent him up to Wisconsin for 2 days of training on that. So we're very fortunate to have a good operations and maintenance staff.
Last question programmatically, if I could. We've talked in the past, but we've not really done a whole lot with it, and I'm not sure what the demand is, but I've heard quite a few people about ROTC. And any thoughts on that, cost of the program? What's the interest level in something like that?
I think one of the things you gotta do is, one, you gotta find the space, because it does take some space. And with us being on 32 acres at Bartlett High School, it's like, okay, one, you gotta find, now you gotta find the instructor, and there is an investment that you have to do. And so what we have been focusing on is through our career technical, getting those programs, and then down the road is looking at, is that something that makes sense for the district. But that's something that administration will have to look at and school board, and we'll have to discuss and see if that's something that we want to do.
Apologize, I didn't have a copy of your budget. I hadn't had email for 2 weeks, so I showed up here, and, you know, I was on the, I haven't transitioned from the commission. When you show up at the commission, you should be sitting on my desk. So I apologize, Mr. Superintendent,
worries.
but thank you for getting the copies for me, Frank Miller.
Any other questions? Well, hearing no other questions for the superintendent, thank you for the fine job and all that y'all do, and we'll be recognizing the school teachers here just in a little bit, and so proud to call BHS my hometown. So this concludes the workshop meeting for Bartlett School System.
Thank you.
Dave? 25 minutes left, brother.
I can't dance or sing, so